Cartoons in the 1980 seconds weren't just colorful escapes. They became cultural lightning rods, sparking headlines, edits, and even bans across the globe. What happens when family fun collides with imagery that rattles parents and ratings boards alike? The answer is a decade where animation pushed boundaries harder than ever. From surreal experiments to sci-fi nightmares, these films stirred more arguments than applause. Ready to revisit the wild side of 80 seconds animation? Let's dive in. Gandahar, 1988. If you thought French animation was all gentle artistry and poetic storytelling, Gandahar was ready to flip that script. René Laloux, already famous for Fantastic Planet, delivered this dreamlike sci-fi adventure filled with hypnotic visuals, strange creatures, and eerie landscapes. On its surface, it looked like another fantasy odyssey. But dig deeper, and you'll find themes that made audiences and critics alike deeply uncomfortable. The story follows a utopian society suddenly attacked by mysterious mechanical forces. Sounds straightforward enough. But the film dives into bizarre mutations, unsettling transformations, and imagery that some felt was too strange, even disturbing for younger viewers. When it crossed the ocean to America, things only got weirder. The U.S. distributors redubbed it, chopped the runtime, and slapped on a new title, Light Years, leaving a film that felt more like a surreal puzzle than a coherent story. Censors didn't know what to do with it. Was it art? Was it inappropriate for children? In the end, most broadcasters shoved it into obscure late-night slots, hoping to avoid angry calls. The result? Gandahar became a whispered legend. Fans traded VHS copies, while critics argued whether it was a misunderstood masterpiece or just too odd for its own good. Looking back, the controversy only helped it. Gandahar stands as proof that the 1980 seconds weren't afraid to let animation get truly experimental, even if it left half the audience mesmerized and the other half scratching their heads. Twice Upon a Time, 1983. Imagine a cartoon produced by George Lucas that somehow confused, shocked, and divided audiences so badly that two different versions of it floated around for years. That's Twice Upon a Time, a quirky experiment in a new style of cut-out loomage animation that looked charming but carried a darker bite. The story revolves around a pair of misfit heroes trying to stop a villain who wants to cover the world in nightmares. On paper, it sounds perfect for kids. In practice, the film was full of sarcastic humor, unusual pacing, and, in one version, surprisingly salty language that blindsided parents. The film bounced between edits, one cleaned-up cut for family audiences and one unfiltered version that caused all the complaints in the first place. Broadcast networks panicked. Which version would air? Depending on where you lived, you might have seen the family-friendly version, or the one with sharper edges that left parents calling station managers in outrage. Kids expecting a standard fairy tale ended up baffled, and parents didn't know whether to laugh, cringe, or just change the channel. The confusion turned Twice Upon a Time into a cult curiosity. Fans who saw the forbidden version swore it was the better cut, while critics debated whether the entire movie was an artistic oddball or just a tonal misfire. Either way, its place in animation history is secured as one of the decade's strangest experiments. Sometimes, controversy doesn't come from shocking visuals, it comes from leaving people utterly unsure of what they just watched. Starchaser, The Legend of Orin, 1985. When a movie is sold as the animated Star Wars, you expect epic space battles, laser swords, and plenty of adventure. Starchaser, The Legend of Orin delivered on those promises, but it also delivered moments that sent parents storming out of theaters. The film follows a young slave who discovers a mysterious sword and sets out to free his people from an oppressive ruler. Epic, right? Except the story leaned into heavy action, dark imagery, and surprisingly intense moments of peril. Robots didn't just malfunction, they shattered in ways that startled audiences. Villains weren't simply defeated, they met grim ends that pushed the limits of what animation usually dared to show children. Parents who brought their kids expecting a PG adventure like Disney or Don Bluth instead found a film filled with unsettling visuals and mature undertones. Complaints rolled in, and some theaters even pulled the film after negative reactions. Home video didn't help much either, as word spread that this was not the safe space opera many expected. Despite the backlash, animation fans admired its ambition. The 3D sequences were ahead of their time, blending computer graphics with traditional art. The controversy only gave it a kind of outlaw reputation. If Star Wars was the clean, crowd-pleasing blockbuster, Starchaser was its darker cousin, unafraid to take risks. Today, it remains a curiosity, a reminder that not all animated space adventures were meant for Saturday morning audiences. Rock and Rule, 1983. If you've ever wondered what would happen if Saturday morning cartoons collided head-on with the wildest rock stage show of the 1980 seconds, Rock and Rule is your answer. This Canadian cult oddity threw away the rulebook and never looked back. Set in a post-apocalyptic world populated by mutated animals, the story follows a power-hungry rock star trying to summon a dangerous force using the energy of music. Sounds eccentric? It was more than eccentric. It was pure chaos. With a soundtrack featuring legends like Debbie Harry, Lou Reed, and Iggy Pop, the film had all the ingredients to become iconic. Instead, it became infamous. American distributors panicked. MGM hacked the movie to pieces, redubbing voices, cutting major scenes, and leaving audiences with a confusing, watered-down plot. Even in its complete form, Rock and Rule wasn't exactly kid-friendly. The visuals leaned edgy, the themes were darker than expected, and the dystopian setting carried a grit that felt far removed from the Disney shelf. Some countries slapped restrictive ratings on it, while TV networks avoided it entirely. Fans who did see it, however, were mesmerized. Midnight screenings and bootleg VHS tapes turned it into an underground classic. For a generation of animation lovers, discovering Rock and Rule felt like stumbling onto a secret club, one where cartoons could be loud, rebellious, and dangerous. Looking back, the controversy wasn't just about the content. It was about the audacity of making an animated rock opera for adults at a time when animation was still largely dismissed as children's fare. That very boldness turned Rock and Rule into one of the most talked-about misfits of the decade. Fist of the North Star 1986. If you've ever wondered how intense an animated martial arts epic can get, Fist of the North Star holds the crown. Based on the mega-popular manga, this 1986 film dropped audiences into a scorched earth wasteland where the strongest fighters' punches didn't just knock opponents down, they shattered them. The violence was stylized but shocking. Characters erupted in exaggerated bursts, crumbled to pieces, or suffered gruesome defeats, all while the hero, Kenshiro, delivered his, now legendary battle cry. For Japanese audiences, this was part of the spectacle. For Western censors, it was an instant red flag. When the film hit Europe and America, edits came swiftly. Scenes were trimmed, reanimated, or removed altogether. Some countries released it only with strict adult ratings, effectively cutting off mainstream audiences. The result? Fans traded tapes to see the real version. By word of mouth, it became infamous not just as a violent action film, but as a challenge. Were you brave enough to watch it uncut? Critics dismissed it as over the top, while fans celebrated it as a faithful adaptation of one of Japan's biggest manga hits. Looking back, the controversy turned Fist of the North Star into legend. It's a reminder that sometimes the more people try to suppress a film, the more it explodes into cult status. Kenshiro's fists didn't just destroy enemies, they broke censorship barriers wide open. Golgo 13, The Professional 1983. Meet Golgo 13, the animated assassin whose first film outing caused waves in both Japan and abroad. Released in 1983, this movie adapted one of Japan's most famous manga series about a stoic professional completing dangerous missions. What set it apart? The film didn't sugarcoat anything. It leaned hard into gritty storytelling, unexpected betrayals, and brutal confrontations. What shocked most audiences, though, wasn't the storyline. It was the presentation. The film mixed traditional animation with one of the earliest uses of computer graphics. A climactic helicopter scene looked groundbreaking at the time, but critics paired their fascination with complaints about the mature content. Western distributors cut heavily, with entire sequences removed for fear of backlash. Japan rated it strictly for adults, while U.S. TV channels wouldn't even consider airing it. Video stores often shelved it far away from family-friendly animation. Fans who got their hands on imported tapes quickly realized they were watching something that didn't play by any of the rules of American animation. Over time, Golgo 13 became a cult title. Its reputation was cemented not just for its place in anime history, but for how strongly it challenged the West's assumptions about what animation could portray. It wasn't kid-friendly. It wasn't trying to be. And that boldness is exactly why it caused so much fuss. Robot Carnival 1987. Anthology films are often unpredictable, and Robot Carnival might be the ultimate example. Released in 1987, this collection of shorts by different animators explored the theme of robots in wildly different ways. Some stories were whimsical and lighthearted, others plunged into destruction, fear, and despair. That mix is exactly what stirred the pot. Parents who stumbled onto the title thought it might be safe based on the cover art. After all, Carnival sounds harmless. Instead, they found episodes that showcased mechanical apocalypse, haunting imagery, and storylines more suited to adults than children. Censors debated how to classify it. Was it too inconsistent to ban, or too disturbing to ignore? In the U.S., distributors trimmed certain shorts and released it quietly, but word spread quickly. Fans praised its artistry, while others called it unsettling. The dual nature of Robot Carnival, part dream, part nightmare, sparked arguments that continue to this day. Ultimately, the controversy only elevated its reputation. Robot Carnival showed that animation anthologies could be as daring and divisive as any live-action experiment. And in the 1,980 seconds, that was enough to set it apart as a lightning rod for debate. Angel's Egg 1985. If Akira was chaos, Angel's Egg was silence. This 1,985 anime by Mamoru Oshii delivered almost no dialogue at all. Instead, it unfolded as a slow, haunting meditation on a mysterious girl carrying an egg through a ruined landscape. The visuals were gorgeous but also eerie: stained glass skies, skeletal fish, and endless shadows. Censors didn't know what to make of it. Was it suitable for children? Definitely not. The pacing was too slow, the imagery too unsettling, and the themes far too abstract. In Japan, audiences were divided. Some hailed it as a work of genius, others walked out confused or frustrated. Abroad, the confusion multiplied. Importers barely knew how to market it, and critics accused it of being animation for nobody. But Angel's Egg's very strangeness gave it a kind of forbidden mystique. Fans who saw it on imported tapes or late-night screenings swore it was a masterpiece. Others dismissed it as pretentious nonsense. Either way, its stark visuals left a mark. The film sparked debates over whether animation could, or should, chase pure atmosphere rather than story. Looking back, Angel's Egg proved that controversy doesn't always come from action or intensity. Sometimes all it takes is a movie so quiet and strange that nobody knows where to place it. That's exactly why it's still discussed today as one of the boldest oddities of the 1,980 seconds. Barefoot Gen 1983. Few animated films have hit as hard as Barefoot General. Adapted from Keiji Nakazawa's manga, it told the story of a boy living through the atomic destruction of Hiroshima. Released in 1983, it stunned audiences with its unflinching detail. Skin burns, collapsing buildings, desperate survivors. It wasn't the kind of imagery people expected in a cartoon. In Japan, it immediately sparked debate. Some educators wanted to use it as a teaching tool, while others argued it was too graphic for classrooms. Abroad, the reaction was even more intense. Broadcasters balked at showing it, worried that young audiences would be traumatized. Censors in certain countries trimmed sequences, while others avoided distributing it altogether. The controversy centered on a single question: should animation confront history this directly? Fans praised it as essential, while critics worried it blurred the line between education and trauma. Parents who stumbled across it unprepared often left shaken. Yet, Barefoot Gen's impact couldn't be denied. It became a cultural touchstone, cited in discussions about how far animation could go in portraying reality. The debate it sparked is still alive today. Some call it one of the most important animated films ever made, while others say it crossed lines no cartoon should. Either way, the shockwaves it sent through the 1,980 seconds were undeniable. Unico in the Island of Magic, 1,983. At first glance, Unico looked like the definition of safe children's entertainment. Based on Osamu Tezuka's adorable unicorn character, it promised colorful adventures and lighthearted fun. But the Island of Magic, the second Unico film, took a very different turn, and parents weren't ready for it. The story introduced a chilling villain who turned people into lifeless puppets. Entire towns were transformed, children included, and the imagery was surprisingly disturbing. What started as a pastel fantasy suddenly veered into nightmare fuel. Kids who expected sweetness found themselves terrified, and parents flooded TV stations and video distributors with complaints. Censors wrestled with how to handle it. Some countries gave it stricter ratings, others edited out the darkest moments. Yet, just like other controversial titles, the edits only made fans more curious. On home video, the original version developed a reputation as the scary unicorn movie. Today, Unico in the Island of Magic is remembered less as a gentle children's tale and more as proof that even seemingly harmless cartoons could spark debates when they wandered into darker territory. It's a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that controversy often hides where you least expect it. The Brave Little Toaster, 1,987. At first glance, The Brave Little Toaster sounds like the gentlest cartoon imaginable, a group of household appliances searching for their owner. But when it finally premiered in 1987, this seemingly innocent movie caused more than a few double takes. Parents expected lighthearted comedy. What they got instead was a surprisingly dark, emotional roller coaster that left kids rattled and critics debating whether it had gone too far. The film's tone shifted constantly. One moment the appliances were cracking jokes, the next they were facing life-or-death situations. A nightmarish junkyard scene showed machines crushed to scraps. A character nearly drowned. Another sequence followed, a vacuum suffering a panic attack. For a movie aimed at families, it was far heavier than anyone expected. Censors didn't ban it outright, but TV networks hesitated. Was it safe for young children? Some stations aired it with warnings, while parents' groups flooded message boards and newspapers with complaints that it was too intense for kids. Theatrical distributors in the U.S. even backed away, worried it would flop or fuel backlash, leading to a direct-to-video cult following instead of a wide release. Ironically, the very elements that made it controversial also made it unforgettable. Fans praised its emotional depth, calling it one of the bravest family animations of the decade. Over time, it developed a cult reputation, not because it was sweet, but because it didn't shy away from darker emotions. Looking back, The Brave Little Toaster proved that even American animation could push boundaries, leaving behind a trail of debates, tears, and, for many kids, a few unforgettable nightmares. So there you have it, 15 animated films that proved the 1,980 seconds weren't just about neon colors and Saturday morning reruns. They were battlegrounds of censorship, creativity, and cultural shockwaves. From the quiet strangeness of Angel's Egg to the explosive chaos of Yorotsuki Doji, each one stretched the limits of what audiences thought a cartoon could be. Which of these would you defend, and which would you rather forget? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories of film history. They were battlegrounds of censorship, creativity, and cultural shockwaves. From the quiet strangeness of Angel's Egg to the explosive chaos of Yorotsuki Doji, each one stretched the limits of what audiences thought a cartoon could be. Which of these would you defend, and which would you rather forget? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories of film history.